Welcome back. The first season of The Drill was mostly about rebuilding myself, finding focus, creating structure, and figuring out what mattered enough to commit to. But over the last few months, I became interested in a different question. What if the biggest challenge isn't ourselves? What if it's the environments shaping us every day? So I ran a small experiment. Last month, I worked with 7 professionals here in the UK to test a simple idea. Can we audit the algorithms shaping our attention? 5 completed the experiment. 2 dropped out. One participant gained back 7 hours in a single week. Another became aware, for the first time, of how much of their attention was being consumed by content they had never chosen to care about. But the result that stayed with me most came from someone who did everything right. They disabled notifications, removed distractions, followed the protocol carefully every day, and by the end of the week, their screen time had gone up. The algorithm was no longer knocking on the door, they were walking back to it themselves. I now call this the phantom effect, and it pointed to something I hadn't expected to find. The biggest problem with our feeds may not be the notifications. It may be the habits those notifications have already built inside us, quietly, over years, without our permission. Those of us who have built lives across 2 countries carry a particular version of this problem. Your feed is rarely about where you are going. It is usually anchored to where you came from. Home country news, family group forwards, cultural commentary that made perfect sense when you lived there but now sits somewhere between comfort and distraction. I know this personally. If you followed the drill, you may remember the story. Facebook once decided that my family's primary interest was mutton curry. After a handful of interactions, it proceeded to serve us recipes for weeks. Funny at the time, more interesting in hindsight, because every algorithm is making assumptions about who you are based on who you were. And the question I keep returning to is this: are those assumptions serving the future you are trying to build? Or are they quietly pulling you back towards something else? This is not about abandoning your culture, or your roots, or the people you love back home. It is about noticing where your attention is actually going and deciding whether that is a choice you are making consciously. Most people can tell you exactly how much money they spent this week. Very few can tell you where their attention went. That asymmetry is worth sitting with. So, what am I actually measuring here? The experiment was the first pilot of something I call the algorithm audit, a 7-day protocol built around a concept I've been developing: cognitive capital. Cognitive capital is the attention, emotional energy, and mental bandwidth you invest into your day. It is the resource from which careers are built, skills are built, businesses and relationships are built. The pilot suggested that many of us are investing significant cognitive capital into content we never consciously chose. Reactive inputs that arrive through our feeds, trigger a response, and pull us somewhere we did not intend to go. And the phantom effect showed something deeper still. Even when you remove the trigger, the habit remains. The pull is internal now, not external. Before we can do anything about that, we need to see it clearly. The pilot gave me a baseline. Now I want to scale it. 7 participants are not enough to draw broad conclusions. They are enough to reveal patterns worth investigating further. So I am opening the algorithm audit beta to the next 50 participants. This is not a digital detox. You do not need to delete your apps. You do not need to disappear from your feeds. For 7 days, you will observe your habits and make 4 specific technical adjustments. You will silence non-human notifications. You will identify the reactive content that is capturing your attention. You will intentionally train your feed toward your professional goals. And you will create small, deliberate boundaries around attention leakage. The whole thing begins with a 3-minute baseline form. At the end of the week, you return and record what changed. What I am looking for is not just screen time data. I want to understand where your cognitive capital is actually going and whether a week of intentional adjustment shifts that in any measurable way. If you have ever felt that your feed knows a version of you that no longer quite fits, this is the experiment for you. The link is in the show notes. It takes 3 minutes to start. And whether you decide to join or not, I encourage you to try one thing today. Open your favorite app, look at the first 10 posts, and ask yourself, what is this training me to think about? Because you cannot redesign an environment you cannot see. Thank you for listening. I'll share what we learn from the next cohort in a future field note. Until then, stay curious.